Welcome to Extreme Talk, presented by GracePointe Healthcare. GracePointeHealthcare.com. Mention you're with 8-Man Extreme, $20 off your new patient office visit fee. GracePointe Healthcare, modern medicine the old-fashioned way. Fueled by Fairlife Core Power Protein, financially supported in part by First Horizon, and sponsored by Crumble Cookies and Iceberg Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Welcome to everyone watching or listening around the world. Spencer Thompson alongside Brendan Daniel and James Shannon joining us from afar. How are things up in White House, James? Well, we lost him. I'm sure we'll get him back at some point.
I'm here.
There he is. How are things up in White House, James?
I'm here. It's a little iffy, but trying to make it work.
Trying to do what he can to make it work with the remote connection from afar. I'm sure we'll have him in studio next week in some regard. But before
duty calls.
Yep.
Same reason we were running late yesterday. Duty calls.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But before we get to the recaps, I just want to say what an upset week in the 8-man football world. A lot of upsets, a lot of undefeated teams through this point. Just took their first losses of the season, and some of them will have it as bulletin board material. Some of them, it could be their crushing blow that could set the course for the rest of their season. But Brendan, what a start, what a conclusion to Week 6 with Friday and Saturday night.
Absolutely. I mean, sheesh, just most of the upsets that happen, it's just super shocking, especially the teams that I thought would never probably lose. But that's honestly football. You never know what's going to happen.
And the crazy thing about it was the upsets weren't like South Haven and Freedom. It wasn't like a last-second Hail Mary, kick a field goal. It was a dominant performance by the teams that beat them.
Yeah, a lot of dominant performances, and we'll get into that in just a few moments. All right, follow along on your helmet schedules. Instead of top to bottom today, we're going by the games that did not have any impact on the playoffs, but were still significant to cover, and then we'll follow down through to the rest of the matchups that affected the playoffs in the TSIAA and the ACSC. So we start out with 8-man football history, the first victory in program history for the Zion Christian Academy Eagles in their 8-man football tenure. 42-20 as they collided with the Lighthouse Christian School Lions in Antioch. And I'll start with you on this one, James. For Coach Jeff Jordan and the amazing players, we saw a few weeks ago where they had their game suspended due to severe weather against the Franklin Classical School Knights at home. And it was looking like it would have been a competitive game, potential for it to be their first victory in their program history. But of course, the weeks that followed, they took several unfortunate losses, and now the Eagles for Zion Christian, they could say they've gotten that first program victory and chance for them to continue to go up under the leadership of Jeff Jordan.
Yeah, it's obviously it's emotional when you get your first win, and even on top of the fact that he wasn't even there, had a close contact issue with some family, and so he had to sit the game out. They had an interim head coach, but for them to go to Lighthouse, and of course Lighthouse struggling, another couple of injuries Friday night to players. The injury bug has not taken any mercy on them at all. But for Zion to go in there and the work that they put in over the last few weeks to finally be able to pick up a win and get that on the board, it's massive for a program.
Absolutely is, and we've seen both Zion and Lighthouse throughout the season and such. For Brendan, it's tough loss for Lighthouse. The struggles just continue for Coach Sean Bell in his first year, but from the conversations we've had with them, they're a very young team. This is their time to use this as bulletin board material and realize, yeah, we can have a losing season this year. Going forward, this is just motivation for us to turn things around as they potentially make a push for the playoffs in the future.
Absolutely, and while the other guys that probably wouldn't get as much playing time as they usually would thanks to all these injuries, now they get the experience. So maybe now you have the depth for even later on, maybe next year, you can make a deeper playoff run.
And you really hate it. And James, I was about to toss it to you on this because you especially hate it for Lighthouse and how many injuries that they've had throughout the season. So from your perspective, James, and the injuries that you heard, how impactful is that going forward for Lighthouse?
I know I heard a question about some injuries, and to break the fourth wall, Spencer, if you could turn down your game just a little bit.
he breaks the fourth wall no matter what happens, whether it's in
Very true.
studio or on the phone. No matter what happens there, he always does that. So, but
I'm thinking with your gain when you're talking at a normal tone, and then when your voice raises a little bit is when it cuts in and out.
all right.
So,
Well, yeah, a lighthouse injury significance.
um, it's you hate to see what that program is going through this season with a first year coach. I was on the Sean Bell hype train, and not saying that I'm not still a fan of his, but you know, the Lighthouse and Sean are both getting they're taking their first year lumps, and it's never a pleasant thing. But you know, these guys are going to bounce back. They're going to rebound. They've still got some bright spots on their roster that are going to be able to come back and contribute next year.
And let's hope that is the case going forward. But congratulations to the Zion Christian Academy Eagles, their first win in program history for 8-man football. It's a good thing they got it now because they got a tough matchup next week in Ottawa against the Grace Baptist Academy Golden Eagles. And as for the Lighthouse Christian School Lions, tough loss. But on Thursday, they have a matchup with the Tennessee School for the Deaf Vikings, which should be a competitively close game in that one. Well, south of the Tennessee border, the Southern Prep Academy Fighting Rangers got the victory 35-6 against Stewart County. And James, Coach Bell, just doing what he's known best for. You know, they took at least one loss on the year, but they continue to just keep rolling as they head through the rest of the 2021 season.
Well, and what they've had to deal with the last 2 weeks, having their games canceled, not being able to fill those spots, they've really had to just dig deep and find it within them to make it happen. And then having to go on the road Friday night, all of that put together, it was never going to be easy at all. But Coach Bell handling business. I'm trying to pull up. I don't think Stewart County has done well over the last couple seasons. But you know, Southern Prep 2 wins in a row. Let me see if they've got their stats up because I want to give these guys shout outs. Hang on momentarily.
If you're looking on Max Prep, they don't have them.
I don't have them. Okay. All right. I mean, all the typical guys that you would think performed well. I'm guaranteeing they performed well. I absolutely hate breaking the game down like this. This is what stats are so important, and that's why we ask everybody to, you know, please keep us as informed as you can. But no, it's good to see Coach Bell and them rebound, get a win, an 8-man win. But you know, now the beef of their schedule comes, and they're really going to have to buckle down and start getting ready to handle business.
You're absolutely right, and Southern Prep, they got to buckle down going forward. But congratulations to them on their latest win against Stewart County. Next week they travel to Meadowview for an 11-man contest, at least when it's notated on the schedule. So best of luck to Southern Prep.
I believe it is an 11-man.
Yep, best of luck to them.
So they had one, two, three, four 11-man games to start the season, and then they'll play 5 8-man games to end.
Yep, should be a interesting pathway for them to finish out this season. We continue on to a game that really surprised us when we were getting the scoring updates from Mount Juliet. The Evangel Christian School Lightning coach Tim Smith has bounced back 63-24 against the Freedom Cowboys in Huntsville on the road. If you're looking at Max Preps, the statistics are not on there at this moment. They usually update everything later in the week after our show. But so no box score on how that went down. But James is getting scoring updates, so I'm sure he'll get that to us in a second. But Brendan, we were hearing those scores either just live or in between commercial breaks and everything. It makes you realize that Evangel, they still have Tim Smith. They still have Hagen Joyner. They've still got star athletes like Whitfield under center and in the pocket. It's just incredible to see how the Evangel Christian School Lightning have bounced back, especially against a tough Freedom Cowboys team, to get this important victory.
Absolutely. And James sent me a story last night on it, and from what I read, it was a pretty close game at the beginning, going back and forth, but Evangel just eventually just played great defense and stopped the Freedom Cowboys, and then they just press the gas pedal and just score it on offense. Plenty of times, just enough to get past Freedom Cowboys.
Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at that same report from the Shelby County Reporters. Shout out to them on this. Yeah, they marked it as Freedom Academy on the article headline, even though it's
Which
the
they
Freedom
used to be
Cowboys.
Freedom Academy.
It used to. It used to. So Hunter Adkins had touchdown runs of 50 and 83 yards to give him a 14-0 lead, and Lucas Mass kicking the extra points. But Freedom, a 2-point conversion and a 90-yard kick return to start and going through. Eli Whitfield, 2-yard touchdown run. Pair of touchdown passes to Judah Thompson. So another touchdown pass in the third quarter early. It's James. James, it just
Whitfield had the 1-yard touchdown run as well.
yeah, as I was getting that, but James, it looks like Evangel. They controlled the tempo of this game right from the start, and just unfortunately, the Freedom Cowboys just couldn't make enough adjustments to get the W.
Well, and despite them going to South Carolina, winning the passing tournament earlier this year, Freedom Cowboys, that is, um, they are a run-first team. They will be. They always have been. And when you can't get that up and running, when that's the primary focus of your offense, and you can't get that up and running, it's going to show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they got outplayed just across the board. There's no excuses made about it. They got outplayed, and um, in one of the biggest games of the year, despite it being, whether it's Tennessee, Alabama combined, Evangel showed up and showed out.
Yeah, Evangel absolutely did, and Coach Tim Smith has gotten a bounce back victory. So congratulations to the Lightning. They now have a home matchup on Friday with huge playoff implications on the line for the ACSC against the Lighthouse Homeschool Warriors. And of course, as for the Freedom Cowboys, they take the loss. They do have a bye week, so they have some rest before they begin their five-game stretch, including the Independence Bowl to conclude the season and the bowl game. The other contest going now to the TSIAA, the matchups that impacted the playoff seedings and scenarios. May Flanders Field, the Colts got it done, 36-18 over the undefeated South Haven Christian School Patriots, and another one of those games where it is so tough to win at May Flanders Field, Brendan, and for the South Haven Christian School Patriots, for them to win in the fashion for the Patriots to take that loss in the fashion that they did, it was not a blowout by any means. It was just that the Colts, they knew what was on the line. They knew they knew from last year hosting a first-round playoff game. They like that bye week. They like being able to wait a week until facing off against their next opponent and be able to get an extra week of practice. So they got the job done. In essence, the Colts, depending on how they perform against Ezel Harding and Lighthouse in the first 2 weeks of October, that's a big win for them to try and make that campaign for the first-round bye.
Absolutely. You always want to go for that number ranked seed in order to get that week break. It means a lot, not only for your players to get healthy, but as you said, you get that little extra practice to get in. And it's just, Christian community just showed that they're a pretty dominant team when it comes to it. I mean, you could tell on the scoreboard, they have quarter one, it was pretty even. Quarter two is pretty even. And then they just took off 3, and then they just kept the pedal going at 4.
And looking at least on Max Preps, we do have a box score, but no statistics entered yet. So it looks like this is how close it was: 8-6 at the end of the first quarter, 6-6 in the second. So 14-12, closely knit. It was in the third quarter where CCS went on a 14-0 run, and then 8-6 in the fourth quarter where South Haven at least got that one more score, but. James, it's we've talked about it previously, how the Colts they had their struggles, especially the week prior where they were at Grace Baptist, and you mentioned it before that you felt as if South Haven had a little bit more easier schedule going into that Colts game, and at least by the score line, it showed that James Shannon is correct. Looks like we have lost James Shannon.
Hang on, I'm back.
There he is.
All right, say it one more time.
So we were talking about the box score: 8-6 first quarter, 6-6 second, 14-0 third quarter, and 8-6 fourth. All times favored Christian Community. You mentioned that leading up to this Colts game, South Haven had not really played anyone that was a difficult challenge. But now, with the score line, looks like James Shannon was correct.
Well, I mean, look at the schedule. And this is not to bury South Haven. Love them to death. They obviously, against the teams that have struggled this season, they had to handle business. So I'm not saying that, it's like they got handed 5 forfeit wins. They still had to work hard to get them.
Yep.
But they played Zion, who just got their first win. Lighthouse is winless. Classical is winless. TSD is winless. And Sacred Heart put up a good fight against them. But Sacred Heart, is only 2-2. So, I mean, going into the CCS game, that was their biggest challenge, even though CCS was 2-2 as well. And, at CCS, they handled business. And that's the thing about CCS is they could play a team like a South Haven or a team that's struggling, or even a team that's struggling. Not saying South Haven's struggling. They're so disciplined and perform so well that they can look like world beaters, but I don't think this season they're on that elite level. I don't see them making a run because, then they go to Grace and get the doors blown off. But to come back to it, South Haven just, I don't know what happened. But CCS dominated and took care of business, especially in the second half.
Yeah, in the second half, Christian Community turned on the Jets.
I think maybe it might have been a defense adjustment. Just me kind of like going on a whim here and just kind of thinking coaching wise. Like maybe in halftime, coach was like, okay, let's make some type of defense adjustment so we can shut South Haven down so we can get up on the board. That's what it feels like to me.
What do you think, James?
It may have been. CCS may have had to make that adjustment. It sure looked like they did something.
Yeah, Coach Tommy Thornton has been around the block a few times, so maybe you're right, Brendan. He maybe got an adjustment in there towards the second half to shut him out. Only allow one touchdown in the second half and to outscore them by 22 points. So 22.
Well, when you have a defensive coordinator like Tommy Thornton, who's been around the block, and then an inexperienced offensive coordinator like Michael Crawley. I'm just kidding. I'm messing.
You're about to get some phone
Totally
calls
just
after
kidding.
that one.
No, I mean, Coach Thornton has seen some things, and he can, and he can adjust. And I mean, it showed that it happened Sunday. I had to give Crawley a hard time about that.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get a phone call after that one. After that one, I know it's in good fun, of course. You're still gonna get a phone call after that one, but congratulations to the Christian Community School Colts. They hold the driver's seat in the North. They don't have a matchup in the North until October, but for next week they stay at May Flanders Field to host the Providence Christian Academy Lions, and we'll talk about that matchup in a little bit. And as for the South Haven Christian School Patriots, they bounce right back. They do not have any more home games on the year unless they can get the number 2 or number 1 seed, depending on tie-breaking scenarios. They travel to Nashville to collide with the Ezel Harding Christian School Eagles before having 2 bye weeks. All right, and with that, we head on to the next matchup, which one of the storylines I didn't think we were going to be talking about on Sunday. It's we were on a road trip down to Ottawa yesterday, and we figured out some of the information and such from this. There was a player for one of the teams that posted that apparently there were no referees at the matchup between Ezel Harding Christian School and Franklin Classical School, so they held a scrimmage for one half, and Ezel Harding won that scrimmage 36-0. But the statement I have received from the assistant executive director of the Tennessee State Independent Athletic Association is, we are aware of Friday's situation. We are working through it. We do not have any more information at this time. That's the statement I've been given from there. We have no statement from the officiating organization that was involved, but it's It's on homecoming night as well for Ezel Harding. It's one of those
Mhm.
situations, and in a playoff scenario game, because that was the question I asked to both the executive and assistant executive director for the conference was, how does this affect playoff seeding when neither of these teams have a matching bye? And we were talking about it on the road trip down, James, in that there is the potential that Ezel Harding, their game at Sacred Heart, they could cancel that matchup because Franco Classical does have a bye. That's the weekend right before the playoffs, so that's the only feasible time that those matchups could align, unless they canceled one of their others. I mean, you also have October 8th, where Classical is hosting the Freedom Cowboys, so Classical could cancel on Freedom and to make up that matchup against Ezel Harding, but this is one of those really tough situations that I mean, take the playoffs aside. Take that out of there. As players, you hate it to get on game site and be told by your coach last second there are no referees, we're just going to do a scrimmage, because you're already preparing for that game mindset again, especially against a tough Ezel Harding team, and on the other side you're preparing against Franklin Classical, even if they've haven't had a winning season. So it messes with the mantra, but James, it's one of the weird situations that we see. We've pretty much now seen it all around 8-man football. So it's just weird situation.
And if you're Isaiah and Franklin Classical, I think you're the most upset about this because now you've gotten players injured for a half regulation time scrimmage that you don't know. I got to take that back. We don't know because they're there's certain people that love to not give out information. Um, but you had players get injured in a game that might not even affect your playoff situation or your season. I mean, I think in a regular game situation, that Ezel Harding still would have won. So I mean, if you want to mark it down that way, fine, mark it down that way. But it's just so ridiculous that somebody dropped the ball somewhere, and I hope they get to the bottom of it. I hope they figure out who did not handle business, because I've never heard of this happening ever.
Don't think so. No.
Yeah, right.
Um, it's just it's ridiculous. It really shouldn't have happened.
One thing you might also want to fact check on here, James. We reported 36-0. Max Preps has a final reported score of 42-0.
Yeah.
So, but granted,
The broadcast of Ezel Harding that they do at their home games, the final score on there was 42-0. Uh, I know we were told by multiple players that it was 36-0. Let me check. Y'all can keep going. I'm going to check the broadcast
all right.
just to verify.
Well, as James is looking at that, Brendan, any other thoughts on what's a really I feel like this may have happened once, even before the existence of 8-man extreme, or maybe it's happened sometime in high school in Tennessee 8-man football in the last like decade or 2 decades. I have a feeling it may have happened and it's just not reported about, but I'll just say safely, unless I'm proven wrong, one of the more unprecedented situations in
Right.
the 8-man football scene.
No, it's just absolutely crazy. And once again, this is the first time of me hearing something like this. But
I,
it's especially
Spencer,
for
I've got 42-0.
Okay, 42-0 on that score there. Okay, all right, all right. Well, we reported it wrong on the final scores on our social media, but 6-point difference in a scrimmage, so it doesn't make as much of a difference there. But yeah, 42-0 on that. You were saying, Brendan.
yeah, but no, and you said it was Ezel Harding's homecoming, correct?
Yeah.
That's the other factor that really astounds me
Yeah.
because you think about and well we cover homecoming games. We covered one this season because we were at the Tennessee Heat on Friday night, even in the rain and all that stuff. By the way, shout out to the coordination level of the Heat organization because that was a really
That was
amazing
awesome.
environment, and we'll get into the game recap on it. But for homecoming, you at the end of the day, you've got so many things going on. I can understand how some things slip through the cracks, but for the life of me, how did the referees slip through the cracks on that? Because you think with homecoming, you focus first on who's your opponent. Do we have referees booked for it? And then you worry about all the pomp and circumstance circling around the rest of the event that's about to unfold. So for the life of me, how I'm just astounded. I just don't know
Spencer,
how.
I'm watching the broadcast from Ezel Harding's side, because I was interested on, even in a scrimmage you have to have officials, and
Yeah.
they've got just, I guess, volunteers doing the actual marking the yard lines and spotting the ball. I think I saw Josh Austin in there.
Maybe some of the coaches helped out with that. That's interesting. But Brendan, it's just for the life of me, I don't understand how this kind of thing could have happened.
That might have been more on Ezel Harding than maybe the refs because they probably put homecoming before they realized, oh, we don't have any refs, or we haven't really communicated that towards them because that especially has to suck for like the players because in homecoming you want to show out. That's your time to show who you are as a team, as a culture.
Yep.
But it's like now you only have half a quarter or half a just to play. Like no, you
Yeah.
need the whole thing.
Yeah, you hate it as well for the players of Ezel Harding, and James, I reflect your I reflect what you said earlier in that yes, if you're classical, especially the players getting injured, and already in a season that classical is going to be forced into playing Division Two, at least
Yeah.
at this point when they already have injuries enough, and they're probably already in the mindset of let's just go right onto basketball. But I also you also have to think about it from at least the players' side from Ezel Harding, in that the seniors as well. It's their homecoming night. It's a time-honored tradition in high school for them. You just have to hate it from the player perspective, even for the home team, and wonder, how does something like this happen, especially on one arguably the biggest night of your high school season.
If high school football, and we've always said that we do this because of the kids, anybody involved with this should do it because of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
If high school football is all about the kids, then the kids got absolutely wrong Friday night, and someone needs to answer for it.
Yeah.
Just plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in fact, by the way, I am watching the broadcast, and Josh Austin is helping spike the ball. It's very interesting, actually. I really need to go back and watch this.
but but yeah, it's I agree with you. It's I'd be interested to figure out who's the official person that is at fault in this situation. But what I do know is that we have a scrimmage right now that went final after one half, and we have a potential divisional. We have a divisional matchup game that hasn't been played yet that affects playoff seeding, especially for an Ezel Harding team that more than likely is going to get that number 3 seed. And I'll talk about that in bracketology. But as a team that's more than likely going to get that number 3 seed, this game against Classical, it does matter. It really does.
Yeah, and I kind of want to go back to like blame game. It shouldn't even there shouldn't even be one person to be like, hey, it was my fault. How about all the people that were in charge of this? How about you all just take this as a loss? How about you all just go to the
Sure.
kids and be like, hey guys, we're sorry we did this. We should have done better. So for now on, we'll continue to do better. That's
Sure.
all it takes.
Spence, this brings up an interesting situation. We've talked about it before, and I know each school situation is different with things going on in their school and field situation. But should a team that's in a league, if a team joins the league, should that league take over mandatory scheduling, or at least scheduling conference games, and then saying, okay, you have these weeks open, and they can go fill them with Freedom or whoever they want, Tennessee Heat. But should the league handle scheduling when those in conference games are played?
I will put it at it should be a collective decision by the members of the league. And the problem with that is the way that the TSIAA is structured right now is that the board not fully represented by the schools. They're the ones who have the decision on that. If you go by the Middle Tennessee Athletic Conference structure, every school had one representative, so that would in that system, it's what they're collectively. But with the TSIAA, I would say probably I'd say probably just say you have to have these games scheduled, but don't say you have these weeks open. I would say just yeah, you have to play these games for playoff seeding, but not mandated. Because at least in the current system we have right now, with the way the TSIAA is scheduling and the way that it's formatted, there are inaccurate schedules all over the place. We have to, James, you know about this. You and I have had to work on it in the offseason where we get conflicting schedules. Now, granted, we reach out to the coaches and the athletic directors directly to get their school schedule, and we still find mismatches. We find anomalies that don't make sense. So maybe there's a benefit in having one centralized committee or one centralized body handling the schedules, but it's if it's done right. And for the last several years, it has not been done right. So in its current system, no, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be in the league's discretion because clearly, over the last several years, they've proven that they can't handle it effectively.
Well, and I might be wrong on this, but TSSAA does not handle scheduling for their schools. I don't believe. I know that the schools are responsible to get an accurate schedule to them, but I don't think TSSAA handles it. But they also are over a stupid amount of schools. If you're TSIAA, you've got, correct me if I'm wrong, Spencer, you've got 10 teams, 10 schools.
About something like that. Yeah, 10
For
teams
football,
right now
for
for
football.
football. Yeah.
And you're telling me that you can't keep the schedule straight for 10 schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am looking here at the TSSAA. So it does mention they have the divisions. All regular season games must be scheduled by the Friday preceding the first round playoff games to be counted in the playoff standings. They talk about releasing brackets, appeals. Regular season is week 1. Last week is week 11. Maximum of 10 games after Monday of week 1. There can be no after Monday of week 1. There can be no change in a school's schedule unless such change is approved by the state office. So I think it's that they have to submit their schedules in, but I don't think the TSSAA, other than you have to have your games done by a certain time for playoff situations, they do not.
Right,
They
and
don't.
that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
they don't mandate you
They
have
don't
to.
regulate
Yeah,
that.
they don't regulate
It's
that.
run through them, but they don't. They're not like the NFL where they sit down and they say they lay the schedule out, not each individual team.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're TSIAA, you have 10 schools. It should not be this hard to have an accurate schedule of what games each school is playing on what day. And if there's
Yeah.
extenuating circumstances, weather, COVID, whatever, there has to be a good communication system in place. And communication has not been the strong suit of this conference. I don't even know why we're comparing TSSAA and TSIAA because they are so worlds apart in terms of quality.
Unfortunately, that's the case right now. Yeah, I think it's just right now it's a mess. Hopefully, we'll get some sort of statement or some confirmation on this going into this week. And once that happens, I'll make sure to put it on my social media. But
Don't hold your breath though, Spence, because they don't like to communicate. I'm just saying.
Communication is the death and success of humanity. In this case, it's the death of the TSIAA.
But you're all adults, so please, just everybody just take the blame. Just it's sad when kids are sitting there looking at adults and it's like, well, what's the reason?
Yeah.
And they're all just like,
one of the greatest quotes I ever heard from somebody I talked with is that I forget what the context was surrounding the TSIAA, and it talked to somebody about it. They mentioned the lowest voice in all of these decisions and everything that happens there is the kids. Are the players?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, 100%. They're the lowest voice that I'd be interested. I'd be interested if any of the board members have gone to talk to players outside of their school and get their opinions on what the league should be doing. I'd be really interested to know if any of the I doubt it. I'd be interested in if any of them would be willing to, because I think that would really open up some perspective and open up eyes. Because from the players that players that we talk to and the players
we're listening to people outside of this league that might be business owners or people that have little to no understanding of the conference, of the history of football, of these kids. We're listening to those people more than we are the kids, and that kills me.
Mm-hmm. Looking here, shout out to Jonathan Thompson on this. There are weeks in the TSSAA schedule set aside for in-region games, usually the odd-numbered weeks, but it is up to the schools to determine who plays who and at what time. So, same situation, TSSAA, they just designate certain stuff of like you could schedule whoever you want. We won't control it. It's just by this date, all your playoff games have to be held, and these are the weeks that have to be in region. So they just regulate that stuff, and then the rest of the schools handle that. So and they have to submit it.
Doing that would take communication, and we're not there yet.
Yep. Absolutely not there yet. All right. Well, we've already gone enough on this, but yeah, communication. Let's see if we can get some more communication with get some more communication around this world. So. All right. Well, at least for now, Ezo, Harding, and Franco Classical has not been decided. Personal brag here: Julio Jones just scored a touchdown, so I'm a happy camper.
Well,
okay.
it's about time too.
Yeah, it's about time. Yeah, first touchdown with Tennessee. Okay, so I will give you an update as soon as I have it with Ezel Harding and Franco Classical. I'll let you know what the situation is on that. More than likely, it's going to be that either Classical has to cancel their game against Freedom or Ezel Harding has to cancel their game against Sacred Heart. That's more than likely what the situation is going to be.
Here's the other thing, Spencer. Again, kids getting affected because if they have to cancel on Freedom, now those Freedom kids, they lose a game.
Yep.
And that coach has to try to find a replacement, or those kids just don't get to play that week because of the ineptitude of somebody.
Absolutely.
Yep. One thing I will say though, they're looking at October 8th, so it could potentially work in Freedom's favor, and here's why. Because if let's say Classical has to cancel against Freedom, here are the teams that have a bye week: Evangel, Ezekiel, wouldn't be Ezo Harding, Lancaster, Providence, and Sacred Heart.
That's
so Freedom.
But most of those schools are on fall break.
That's the other problem as well. If it's canceled during that week, it's fall break. So that's the difficulty there. The following week, if Sacred Heart has to cancel, they could play a game with not Franco Classical. They could play a game with CCS. It could be Sacred Heart and Christian Community, familiar divisional rivals. And it's either that or Zion. So Sacred Heart would not have Coach Blankenship wouldn't have as many options. So, but. Anyways, I'll give you updates as soon as we get something on it. But at least for now, it's a very unfortunate situation all around. So, all right. Well, continuing on, the game we were at on Friday night, LeBron Ferguson for the first time on the post-game show because of his victorious victory over the Tennessee Heat, 50-20, and it got.
Did you just say victorious victory?
Yes, I did. The Department of Redundancy Department. Thank you, James. 50-20, 30-point victory for LeBron Ferguson and company. And it's the Tennessee Heat tried to fight back, but it was too little, too late. I would have loved to see that. I would have loved to see that third quarter team of the Tennessee Heat in the first quarter.
Absolutely.
Because then it could have kept things a lot more competitive towards there. But we had a running clock for about 5 minutes in the third quarter, and the Heat tried to fight back and get back into the matchup, and just not much that the Heat could do in that situation. Great effort by guys like Kyron Washington and not Chloe. That was Saturday night's game, but guys like Kyron Washington and Luchtefeld.
DeAndre Martinez.
DeAndre Martinez. Yep.
Luchtefeld was the biggest.
Yeah.
Yeah, great effort by those guys on Friday night for putting the efforts in, even though they were down by so much to Providence. But how about Providence Christian showing up and knowing that they were at the Tennessee Heat's homecoming game? I mean, especially with they had that tough matchup 2 weeks ago against Grace Baptist. For them to come back in the win with that fashion, Brendan. Just great to see Coach Ferguson for the first time on the Extreme Game of the Week in that style.
Man, it just seems like they came in with some anger after that Grace Baptist game, which I completely understand getting beat like that, especially for the players. You kind of just like, okay, so we look like the terrible team, maybe to some. For our fans, they know who we are, so we gotta show everybody else that game was just a bad game, and it's Grace Baptist, so we already know what they're made of. But, yeah, it sucks for Tennessee Heat to get their homecoming wrecked like that.
Yeah.
But at the second half, it is kind of like, hey, they gave the fans something to actually cheer about when they started to come back. But of course, Providence just came back and punched them right in the face.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, James.
No, I was going to say for Providence Christian, there were some guys that they didn't get their name. I'm going to say their names because they weren't said Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Kaywood, Lucas Nemeth,
Yep.
and Malachi Mack and Jack Nemeth, and Luke Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
Had Eli Wilson as well, who ended up being the player of the game. All of these young men just showed up. Andrew Frizzle on the line. I thought he had a good performance. But all these young men, I had never gotten to see Providence in person yet. And that's my first time Friday night. I am thoroughly impressed with the job that Coach Ferguson has done.
Absolutely. And I'm looking on Max Preps. The Tennessee Heat have put their statistics on there. So box score, Providence 22-0 in the first quarter. No points at all in the second quarter.
Yeah.
At least listed on there, 0-0. So that was a more even contest in that second quarter there. Then third quarter, Providence 14, Tennessee Heat 8, and then fourth quarter 14-12. So, but looking, of course, the Tennessee Heat, Luke Matthews, he 81 QBR rating. He had 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, but there were a lot of passes that were dropped by his receivers. Aiden Diaz with the most catches on the night, the most rushes on the night with 8 carries for 23 yards. Most catching on the night was between Washington and Martinez. And Washington had a night. Anytime we see, anytime Washington is playing for the Tennessee Heat, anytime he's on that field, he's gonna perform in spectacular fashion. I mean, 6 receptions for 145 yards. He had a receiving touchdown. He also had 2 carries for 8 yards, so he wasn't as active on the rushing side and everything. But for the Tennessee Heat, great performance by their offense, at least for what they were able to put up. But as James mentioned, even better for Ferguson's company.
Spence, you mentioned Luchtefeld. 16 total tackles on the night, 2 interceptions, and a forced fumble.
Yeah. Great defensive performance.
And he handled kickoffs.
Yeah. I also need to give credit to Providence Christian. I can't remember the name of their kicker, and I'm sure James will get it up to me, whoever was booting it deep, because Providence, every time, it was a touchdown. It was like a touchback, except for the intentional maybe 1 or 2 squib kicks that they did.
I think they only did one.
They only did 1 squib kick,
I think they did one.
But just booting it back to the end zone every single time and making sure there were no returns for Washington. That was
Hang
pretty
on,
incredible.
Give me a second, I'll find it.
I know you'll find it.
I want to give that young man a shout out.
Oh yeah, of course. But yeah, it's
and it was a great defensive end for Providence because they were really focused on Kyron Washington. I know on the stats it says that he catches a lot, but if you really watched the game, if you were there, for the first couple of quarters, they really kept him attached. There was nothing he could really do, and that's why Martinez kind of showed out, and Luftfield also had a couple of things because it was just concentrate on Kyron Washington, make sure he doesn't do anything crazy because he's going to be the main guy that's going to hurt us more than anybody else on that team.
Mm-hmm. Did you find the name, James?
No, I'm currently still searching.
Okay. So it looks like Lancaster did not put in their statistics for the last game on Saturday. But so we'll go into the Saturday game. I'm sure James is going to give that player name a shout out in just a few moments. But
give me just a second to find it.
Yep. While he's saying that, congratulations to the Providence Christian Academy Lions. They now travel to White House to collide with the Christian Community School Colts. And as for the Tennessee Heat, after that tough loss, they now have a matchup against Monterey High School in their second 11-man game of the year in a way to close out September. Can you believe we are 12 days away from October?
It really feels like yesterday we just got here.
Yeah. 12 days from now, it's also we get to start wearing pink, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Of course, you can wear pink all year if you want to. Just more importantly, we'll change all of our logos and everything for
real
for
men wear pink, boys. Real men.
I got salmon shirts. Yeah, well, you'll start seeing the salmon button-ups in October. But again, congratulations to Providence. James, one last time before I go into Saturday, you find the player's name?
Nope, I'm working on it.
He's he's gonna
I'm going to find it.
yeah,
I'm going to find it.
he's gonna find it, and it'll be while we're going over bracketology. I'll be like, all right, playoff scenarios. Hey, Spencer, I found the player's name. That's how it always works out. Okay, the game we were at Saturday night, and I think this is the curse of us in the media, where sometimes we overhype things and then they get disappointed. I mean, it was just it was just like Super Bowl 55 when all the media was saying it could be one for the ages, and then it ended up being very much a defensive heavy game for Tampa Bay. It was a defensive heavy game for the Golden Eagles out of Grace Baptist Academy. 40-14 over the Lancaster Christian Academy Knights. Here's your box score on that. Grace 14-8 in the first quarter. Close there. Second quarter, Super Bowl 47 happened, but 14-6. And to my knowledge, I believe one of those touchdowns was scored by Grace after the 15-minute intermission when the lights came back on.
Yeah.
When those
Spencer?
2 minutes. You found him?
Yep, Landon Carney. He's a senior.
All right, thanks. All right, shout out to Landon Carney for getting a touchback every time.
You got a foot on you, son. You got a foot.
he
Hey,
does.
you know who I want to see a kicking competition between is Carney and
Arrington.
Well, Arrington, I put in there. Luckefeld has a good leg.
Yeah.
And the Freedom Cowboys kicker that
Sure.
we saw against Lighthouse.
Sure, I wouldn't mind
yeah.
seeing all of them. But anyways, Grace Baptist, like we mentioned, the lights went out. 15-minute intermission while the lights kicked back on, and then they played the 2 minutes and 7 seconds. Oh,
Me, James going to get singing careers going.
Just because you're at home doesn't mean you have to feel comfortable enough to sing on air, man. Come on now. All right, 14-8 in the first quarter. 14-6 in the second. There is James is going to get canceled eventually. He's just giving more fodder to why he will be canceled.
You only get 3 days of canceled, though.
Only 3, and he's already used 2 and
I
3
just
quarters.
Make sure that it's a 3-day weekend. Do it at the beginning. Let the 3-day weekend blow over, and then I'm good.
Yeah, well, Labor Day's already passed. We don't have any 3-day weekend. Well, I don't know. Do you get off Columbus Day? I don't remember.
Did we get off Columbus Day?
I think technically on fall break. I think
Get
it's
off of
technically
what?
fall. Technically, fall break is at the same time as Columbus Day. Because I know some businesses close because of the federal holiday. So because
What?
James, the reason I ask is because Labor Day's already happened. So
I feel robbed.
there are. You should talk to your boss about that one leading up to Columbus Day of next month. But anyways, 14-8 first quarter, 14-6 second quarter. Grace 12-0 in the third quarter, running to my knowledge not a running clock, but 0-0 in the rest of that contest. But I'll start with you on this one, James. Lancaster. There were questions about when they started out 2-0 and then going into that Ezel Harding contest and if they would be victorious and managed to do so 3-0. We knew it was going to be an impactful matchup heading into in terms of playoff season and everything. But Grace Baptist, I think it's safe to say that it is not a fluke. They are the real deal at this point, and we can give them the full credit that they deserve, especially in the fashion that they've won in.
Boys, pull out your shovels because I'm about to bury somebody.
Oh, boy.
Oh, no.
Listen, how do you call so many bombs when it's proven that defensive backfield for Grace is going to shut it down over and over? I know you had to watch film on them, and you've done seen. I'm going to use that
Done seen.
You done seen.
You've done seen. You cannot pass the ball on Grace like you can. I don't know. Take your pick of the team.
Any of the 5 that they played through the season.
That's what I'm saying. You cannot throw the ball on them like you have all year.
You also got to give the
That's
quarterback
their bread and
protection.
butter. And on 4th and 1, you're calling a 20-yard pass. I understand that you're down, but hey, get the first down and then do it.
You also have to give your quarterback protection. I mean, no one's back there with him, and Grace is like sending the whole kitchen at him, and poor Bragg has to run for his life and just chuck the ball. Luckily, he has great receivers, which they amazingly catch every single amazing catch that he passed. But Yeah, I'm with you wholeheartedly, James. And then the 2 times they actually ran the ball, they actually got positive yards off of it. So, James, you said the running game they don't have, but if Grace is more worried about the passing game, don't you mix in a couple of running plays?
Spence, when was the last time you can remember Deuce Bragg getting picked off 3 times?
In one game,
Never.
maybe a playoff game that they had. Maybe in 2019 when they had that playoff game against CCS. But
And honestly, I'm not going to put that on Deuce. I'm
sure,
not going to put it on Deuce. I'm 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 putting it on play calling, honestly.
sure. Yeah, sure. And of course, last year they had Coach Sean Bell on the offensive coordinator side. I think it's showing that they lost a key centerpiece to that offensive front with Bell going to Lighthouse.
But they
Um,
also gave up 4 sacks. So
Again, no protection for the quarterback
yeah,
whatsoever.
yeah, it's tough stuff. Grace Baptist did post their stats on Max Prep. Shout out to them for that. So we'll highlight the players that we have information on. So
As usual.
Cooper Connett, he had a 98 QBR, 9 completions for 16 yards, 109 yards passing. It was more a rush heavy game. And Connett, 17 carries, 121 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Mason Long had the other rushing touchdown of the game. Caleb Adams had 1 receiving touchdown. He had 4 catches for 51 yards.
3.
Uh, uh, say that again.
It says on here 3.
You'd say no.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I
you're looking at the totals. Yeah,
Tyler Perry had
might
3.
be.
yeah, all-purpose. Cooper Connett just 121 all-purpose yards. Mason Long, a decent amount behind him on that. You also look at tackles. Cole Mason led the team with 7 total tackles, including 4.5 tackles for loss. I mean, and then we talked about the sacks. Cole Mason 2.5 sacks on the night. Pierce Smith with 1.5, and
They both
Cooper
were working
Connett.
for those.
Cooper Connett with 2 interceptions. Man, Connett.
You know what's- you know
Connett,
what's-
he made the right move, Brendan, with predicting Connett as player of the game. But it makes sense why Coach honored I believe that was Eli Wilson on the night. Excuse me, I'm thinking Providence.
I think it was Cole Mason.
Yeah, it was Cole Mason who he honored on that. So you made you made a solid prediction with Cooper Connett, but Cole Mason performed just as well too.
Hey, Brendan, you know what's funny is on the way down to Chattanooga, we were having a discussion about
Yep.
ranking players by stars.
Uh-huh.
We were talking about who would be 5 stars, and we were like, I said in error, I retract it now. I said, well, I think Cooper Connett could be a 5-star if he could show up on the defensive side of the ball and contribute on both. And then Cooper Connett, without knowing I said that,
Right
pulled
on
off
cue.
5 tackles and 2 picks.
He's definitely 5-star now.
Oh, yeah.
He's definitely
He's a 5-star.
Right on cue with that, but what a game! What an incredible game by the Grace Baptist Golden Eagles, and now they continue their stride with like that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight wins in their 8-man football debut, and
Now, Spence, I will say, Lancaster did hold Grace to 40.
they did.
So that's something to be said. Not a whole lot to be said, but it is something.
Yeah, they held them to 40 points at least. When the rest of the teams that have faced off against Grace Baptist have allowed about 50 points or more. Be interested to look at that stat of what their average points per game are.
Let me average it out real quick.
He'll average it out as we wrap up week 6.
The average, Spencer, if you take out the Bradley Ninth game, the average is 50.
Mm-hmm.
If you do want to add it in the Bradley Knights game,
probably about 55 or 60 added in.
The 106, 54, 48, 54, 48. So they pretty much scored around the same amount of points.
Yep, pretty much each game.
So they were averaging 62 points a game. So they held them to 40, and then if you take the Bradley game out, they were averaging 50 points a game and scored 40. So I mean, just below the average, but still.
impressive.
something to be said about it.
Impressive stuff. You got one more thought, Brendan?
Yeah, just want to give a quick shout out to Grace Baptist coaching staff, honestly, because that culture just seems a whole bunch of fun. You can see
Yeah.
it on the sideline as they're doing perfect plays, whether it's defense, offense. The coaches are getting into it. They're telling the players to like have fun and like jump around and all that. Even with the whole sideline issues, it's not that much of a problem when they try to like step over that line a little bit. But yeah, it seems like Tech is doing a great job over there, and I hope he continues to do so.
To be fair, Brandon, winning fixes a lot.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but this is their first year.
Yeah.
That's true.
So you never really know what you're going to get into once you switch up.
Yeah, it's the winning culture. The winning culture by Coach Ateka as it continues.
It's really the chicken and the egg. Do you get the winning culture by having a fun environment, or do you get the fun environment for a winning culture?
It's a good question.
You might just get. I don't know. It might be. You might have a point there, James. You might get that one. You may have that one.
And in reverse, if you have a bad environment, does that create a losing culture, or does the losing culture create a bad environment?
The losing culture definitely makes a bad environment because then you start pointing fingers at who's the problem, and instead of trying to fix that problem,
Yeah, but if you have a bad toxic environment, the majority of the time you're not going to be a winning football team.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It makes sense. So congratulations to Grace Baptist Academy. Next week they have a home contest against the Zion Christian Academy Eagles. And for Lancaster Christian, they are dealt their first loss of the season. Doesn't get any easier next week as they host the Franklin Christian Academy Falcons. All right, that wraps up week 6. And now it is time for my complicated job, and I would say favorite, but we put that in so many quotation marks you can't even count them. We go into bracketology. So I sent the bracket to each of you guys individually as we see it now, and you will see it here on your screen. So this is the TSIAA with the complicated situations with it, or, well, I say complicated, it comes down to a coin flip. This is based off of the most wins. It counts first how many wins you have in division right now, then counts how many losses you have in division. So we start, if the season were to end today, Christian Community and Grace Baptist are both 2-0. That is the most wins in division for any of the teams eligible for the postseason. So they would they would have the number 1 seeds and the first round bye. For the number 2 seeds in the South, Franklin Christian and Ezel Harding are 1-0 in division, and again, that is based off of if it is excuse me, that is based on if it is finalized as not counting for the Ezel Harding and Classical game. Otherwise, it would be a coin flip between Christian Community and Ezel Harding for that number 1 and number 2 seed. So it depends on that. So FCA, because of only having 1 win in division, they have their next divisional matchup going into next week. And again, this is all counting, assuming that the Zion Christian game counts towards their playoff standings, because we don't know, haven't gotten an answer on it, don't know. So that is what we're looking at there. And for the number 3 seeds, bad luck for South Haven with that loss right now. This is going off of, yes, they have 2 wins, but they have the 1 loss. So just because of the percentage, that is why they're at the number 3 seed. So don't fret, South Haven. You're still in the Division I playoffs. You still have a chance to take that number 2 seed, especially with your matchup next week against at Ezel Harding. You have a chance to clinch the number 2 seed potentially. It also depends on how Christian Community plays against Ezel Harding and against Lighthouse, because the toss of the coin could favor you. Hate having to say toss of the coin so much, but for the number 3,
it's so ridiculous.
It is number 3 seed Lancaster Christian, because of having 1 win and 1 loss, and Division 2 would be Lighthouse and Classical, as both of them have 0 wins and 2 losses in division. And Providence Christian would be the higher seed in Division 2 at 1 win, 2 losses, then Zion 0-2. So that's our bracket, fellas. And if the season were to end today, It'd be interesting. Interesting. South Haven would travel to FCA, more than likely get the win. You look at the Ezel Harding and Lancaster. That would be a rematch, but it would be at Ezel Harding. So that'd be an interesting first round matchup, and you would get a rematch between. Excuse me. You'd get a rematch with Lancaster, the Battle of the South, because of Ezel. Well, actually. With that matchup between Ezel Harding and Lancaster, whoever wins, you're going to get a rematch from the regular season for whoever has to travel down to Ottawa. But for the other matchup, for Christian Community, you would you could potentially get a matchup of the North teams, or you could get CCS against FCA, which would be a 2017 semifinal rematch. From James, you remember that hypothermia-inducing weather that you called that game with Trent Legate a few years ago.
Oh, you mean the one where Shindell rumbled it?
Oh yeah, Shindell pulled a Tony Romo, as you famously called. But I don't know, James, your initial thoughts on the bracket as it stands right now?
I mean, there's a lot to be sorted out. I'm intrigued by Ezel Harding Lancaster rematch, especially with Coach McGee and some of the injured players that Ezel Harding back.
Yep.
Back for them. South Haven FCA. I mean, it all depends on who comes into the game better prepared, in my opinion. Of course, South Haven's got Ben Sorto and Jake Atkinson, and they've got guys who can make plays. They're going to have to execute. I still don't think. I think there's going to have to be an upset. I don't know what FCA has to bring to the table, but I think that FCA Grace. I think the winner of that game wins state.
You think the winner of the Grace semifinal wins state?
No, I think the winner of this regular in the regular season, the winner of FCA Grace, no matter how the bracket shakes out, unless those two end up playing each other, I think the winner of the Grace FCA matchup later on this season determines who wins state. I don't see anybody from the North challenging Grace.
The South stacked as they usually have been the last several years. Brendan, your thoughts on the TSIAA bracket so far?
I do believe it'll be interesting. I haven't seen FCA yet, but South Haven, hopefully they can keep it together and win out to make it number 3, or maybe even go up to number 2, maybe.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's I think at least with South Haven, I think it's more than likely they'll get that first round playoff game and they'll host it. Just depending on how that matchup is against Ezel Harding, especially because of it being on the road. And at least for South Haven, they'll have their playoff destiny kind of sealed after that week. Sealed in quotation marks because it'll depend on how the rest of the teams perform, but they'll know how many wins and losses they have in division, and they'll know where they shape out in that regard. But yeah, any other thoughts?
No, I kind of agree with you guys. With the rest of it, depends on how the Grace and the FCA game goes. We'll see who wins that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Any final thoughts on that playoff bracket, James?
Man, I really don't think that. I honestly think that if you look at the North, the CCS, South Haven, Ezel Harding, Classical. Who am I missing in the North?
Lighthouse.
No, Classical, Lighthouse, Ezel Harding, CCS, South Haven. Who am I missing?
Those are all 5.
I thought there were 6 for some reason.
No,
That's right. There's 5 and 5.
Yep,
That's
5
right.
and 5.
I think the North, those 3 teams are pretty set. It's just a matter of how the standings end up looking, because South Haven still has to play Ezel Harding first ever matchup.
Yep.
So I mean, there's still a few things to be determined, but it's interesting for sure. And I don't know, am I jumping the gun, or have you got a chance to look at ACSC standings?
Oh, I'm about to get into that. I'm about to let's move right into that. So that's the bracket for the TSIAA North. We'll take that off of the screen and let's talk about the ACSC. If the season were to end today, Lighthouse Homeschool Warriors would be the number 1 seed. They would host the championship, and they would host the Evangel Christian School Lightning, solely because Evangel has only played 1 division game. They haven't even played a division game because the Patriots of South Central had to forfeit that matchup and couldn't reschedule it.
No, Southern Christian.
Southern Christian forfeited, so 1-0 is the record, and Ezekiel with that tough loss to Lighthouse 2 years in a row. They're 1-1, so they would be outside of the state championship if the season were to end in that. But you got a big matchup coming up this Friday, as we'll get into in the previews. But Evangel and the Lighthouse Homeschool Warriors, and with the way Tim Smith won against the Freedom Cowboys, I'm sure Coach Duarte is going to be asking for some film. He's going to want to try and study and do what he can to get better. But yeah, ACSC, if the season were to end today, Lighthouse Homeschool Warriors and the Evangel Christian School Lightning would be in the championship. A lot less complicated to look at in that situation, James.
Way less complicated, but hopefully they're able to add a couple teams, get a playoff system with semis, get a 14 playoff system. I think it would really, really help the conference in terms of just making competitive and not just having the top two automatically go in. That system baffles me, honestly.
Any thoughts on potentially seeing Lighthouse and Evangel collide in the state championship there, Brendan?
I would just like to see everybody get a chance. That's all it is. Like this, that's my main problem with college playoff as well. For like football, I feel like it's not enough just to do 4 teams and then just have them go against. But I'm sure they'll figure it out and branch it out even more. It just takes time. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I do want to mention, Spence, Southern Christian. They did lose to North River Christian last Friday.
Yep.
Who, let's see, Evangel beat North River, Lighthouse beat North River, and Ezekiel beat North River. So Southern Christian is 0-4, but this upcoming week they play a conference game against East Central, who Ezekiel just beat.
Yep.
And that will also play into divisional standings. Or conference standings, rather.
Yeah, it'll play into that a little bit. But, of course, like we mentioned, at least for now, it would be Lighthouse and Evangel in the state championship. But Ezekiel still has a chance going through. They play Evangel on October 1st, and then they close out their season against Southern Christian. So that'll play out in that. So the playoff brackets won't be officially decided until October 22nd, at least for the ACSC teams. October 22nd. After that, it'll essentially finalize, or it could be beforehand. Who knows? But should be interesting as we get into the stretch. And before we get into our traditional preview of the games, we have your latest rankings for the NHSA. All right. So 6-0, Grace Baptist at the number 1 seed. Evangel, of course, with their victory over Freedom, goes to the 2 seed. Russell Christian takes the 3 seed from Lancaster Christian. And Franklin Christian at 4. Lancaster drops down to 5 on the seedings after that loss on Saturday. Freedom Cowboys, they drop down to 6 after their loss to Evangel. Christian Community at 7. Lighthouse Homeschool at 8. Ezekiel at 9, and South Haven at 10. At least at some of the other teams we covered, Providence Christian is at 11. Southern Prep is at 14. Tennessee Heat at 16 after that loss and such. So, James, looking at these initial rankings, I think the committee got it right on this one, with Lancaster going down a few seeds with a tough matchup against Grace and their fight back. I think for Providence Christian to be up at 11 is still up there. South Haven, even with their loss, they're still in the top 10. Christian Community is at 7. Freedom's still up in that. But I think those top 4 seeds, it's looking pretty good if those top 4 teams would face off in Florida.
I'm very curious. At 13, you have Tabernacle Christian out of Alabama. They're part of the CFA with Russell and Jacksonville Christian. I'm very curious with them at 4-1, and I'm pulling up their schedule because I want to see. It could be that they just had a weak schedule. East Central. Let's see. Evangel Christian Montgomery is 2-1. Success Unlimited is 2-1, and Jacksonville Christian is 0-5. So they haven't had as strong of a schedule maybe as Russell, but I think I would have put Tabernacle at least above Evangel Montgomery because Tabernacle did beat them. I also would have. I don't know that I would have put Providence in the top 10.
Which they're not. They're
I mean,
in
it's a
11.
solid top 10 for sure. I don't know. I still think. I still think Russell. I know Russell is undefeated, 3-0. I feel like they're too high though.
Your thoughts, Brendan?
First off, where are you getting these rankings?
Oh, I think they may have just posted them on Facebook. Shout out to Hank St. Dennis for giving us the
Spencer, you
updated
said you
rankings.
texted him.
I texted the bracket. I didn't text the rankings, but here I will send.
By the way, Russell is 4-0, so these rankings.
Okay, so they're still they're 4-0 on in that regard.
Okay, so Russell's 4-0. You can leave him in the top 10. You might be able to leave him at 3. But here's my problem. There's no one on this list that I look at, unless Evangel got a rematch. I think they could do better. There's no one on this list of 42 teams that beats number 1 right now.
Nobody who beats Grace Baptist, in your opinion.
There's nobody on this list that I even look at and go, huh. I mean, of course, we don't know about FCA. They could have some to bring to the table. But if you're Grace, I mean, to be fair, Grace has not played a good running team. I mean, Lancaster was throwing the ball. CCS was trying to run the ball, but their line wasn't able to stay up with the challenge. Providence, they run the ball quite a bit, but even Grace shut them down. So for me, between Evangel and Freedom, it would be very interesting to see either a rematch between Evangel Grace or Freedom Grace.
Yeah, I would love to see Evangel Grace in a rematch.
Or, honestly, I would like to see Lighthouse Homeschool Grace, because I know Lighthouse Homeschool's 3-1. What was their? They lost to Freedom, so I could almost say, hey, let's get Lighthouse Homeschool and Grace.
I would like to watch that.
Yeah, that would be a good one for sure.
I don't think you take the top 4 right now, though, the way it is, because you still have to wait and see how it shakes out between Grace and Franklin.
Right.
So, you could take Grace, you could take Evangel. Depending on who wins the CFA, I know Russell usually isn't going. The word is that Russell's not going to go to Florida anymore. If they would make an exception, if they would go to Florida, they can go to Florida. Really, whoever wins the CFA, go to Florida.
Yep.
And then you can take. Go ahead and take Freedom. And take those 4 teams down there. So in essence, it could be Tabernacle, Freedom, Grace, and Evangel.
Yeah, that would be interesting shakeups. Your thoughts, Brendan?
I'm just surprised that they didn't drop them even more than they did, honestly.
Which team?
Both Freedom and Lancaster, because usually when you have certain losses like that, certain teams like drop even more. But I guess seeing that most of these other teams have like more losses than probably others. Looking. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, Brennan, I mean, Lancaster did lose to the number 1 seed, and Freedom lost to the number 3 seed.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, the number 5 seed, rather.
Yeah.
No, Evangel was 3.
Yeah, Evangel was 3, yeah.
So, I mean, they lost to pretty high-ranked teams, so you can't drop them out of the top 10 for losing to a top-ranked team.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about, especially as we get closer and closer to the NHSA tournament in Florida. But those are your updated rankings. I'm sure that if it hasn't already occurred, Hank St. Dennis and the NHSA team will post that on the Facebook page, so you can look at those rankings yourself. But interesting stuff to look at. Tabernacle lost to Evangel Montgomery. That is what we got from Hank St. Dennis. All right, that's your updated bracketology.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yep, that's your updated bracketology and your standings for the NHSA. So it's time for our favorite time of the week. Week 6 is in the books. Time for Week 7 predictions. No. The drum roll's not yet.
Oh.
It's only for when we announce the game of the week. The games of the week. So we head into the final weekend.
We're 7 weeks in, Brennan!
Sorry, Coach.
Hey, now he has yelled at you for something that's ridiculous. He yelled at me on Saturday for ordering street tacos at B-Dubs. So he still did. Like I'm trying to close out.
That was the
I'm
most
sure you guys.
hilarious
Yeah,
thing.
I'm trying to close out the show, and James just from the press box with everyone looking up and goes, "Who orders street tacos at B-Dubs?"
It's a very legitimate question.
But
It's not Buffalo Wild Street Tacos.
But to be fair, those street tacos did look fire.
yeah, they were good.
But it's not Okay, they go to a Mexican restaurant and get street tacos. It's not Buffalo Wild Street
Fried
Tacos.
chicken
It's
tacos
Buffalo
are
Wild
good.
Wings.
Fried chicken tacos are good though.
What's wrong with experimenting with other places that do tacos though?
Yeah, that's like Jack in the Box doing tacos. Okay, just should not
Hey, it's
happen.
their highest selling item though. That's the company's highest selling item.
How about you try the street tacos next time?
Yeah, maybe if you're hungover.
It makes them millions of dollars. All right. Well, look, at least from what I hear, it looks like James' daughter is calling him. So time to get into predictions for Week 7. We head into the final weekend of September. Can't believe we're almost in October now.
When is our fall break?
Fall break is October 11th and 12th. That Monday for MTSU. Odd question. Excuse me, odd question, but you're right.
Hey, I do want to mention this upcoming Friday in terms of CFA, Tabernacle and Tuscaloosa play. Tuscaloosa 4-1, Tabernacle 4-1. I don't know, is Tuscaloosa on those rankings?
That is a great.
They are.
question.
They are at 17. So 17 and 13 play.
All right.
To me, whoever the winner out of that game has to move at least to number 10.
All right, a big leapfrog jump, but we'll see if that's how the case is. All right, September 24th, follow along on your helmet schedules from top to bottom. We start with the Christian Community School Colts. They host another home game at May Flanders Field for the third 2 of 3 in their homestand as they collide with the Providence Christian Academy Lions and Coach LeBron Ferguson. Colts and Lions, both of them coming off of hot wins, including against interesting teams that they face. Of course, the Colts knocked down the undefeated Patriots, and Providence on homecoming night dealt it to the Tennessee Heat. It's time to figure out which one you guys are going to go with. Brendan, we'll start with you this week between the Colts and the Lions. Who do you got out of this one?
That's a toughie.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm gonna go with Christian Colts.
The Colts, okay.
Mainly because I believe the running game will outdo Providence, and their defense will be able to keep Providence at a hold.
All right. You think that the Colts will hold the Lions? All right, James. Who you got on this one?
Brennan. TCS could only beat the Heat 18-0 at home. Providence goes on the road and beats the Heat 50-20. I'm taking the Lions.
Oh, okay. Split decision on the Colts and the Lions. We continue the Evangel Christian School Lightning. Ooh, this will be an interesting matchup on the card. The Lighthouse Homeschool Warriors in Montevallo. A matchup that could make or break Evangel's chances of getting into the state championship, depending on how they perform against the Ezekiel Academy Knights. And remember, last year, Evangel lost to Ezekiel, and then through tiebreakers, they were knocked out of the state championship for the first time in a long time. So getting this victory against the Lighthouse Homeschool Warriors, it definitely is something that needs to happen. But Brendan, between Coach Smith and Coach Duarte, and with everything in between, who's taking the victory?
I'm going to go with Evangel on this one. They're riding high on a win against the Freedom Cowboys, which is a difficult team to really play. So with that, they're going to definitely go in and beat out Lighthouse.
All right, you got Tim Smith taking the win on this one. James, who have you got for the matchup in Montevallo?
I was about to say, Evangel's going to be riding high off of the momentum of beating Freedom, and especially with them hosting Lighthouse Homeschool, Warriors don't stand a chance. Evangel.
All right, we continue along. The Ezekiel Academy Knights, they host Success Unlimited Academy. I'm sure James has some statistics and knowledge up his sleeve about how Success Unlimited is going to match up. But Brendan, with the Ezekiel Academy Knights and them, who you got?
Oh, I'm going with Ezekiel Academy.
Ezekiel all the way?
Those boys out there, the running game.
Mm-hmm.
I need to pull up his name. I gotta give him some love because
Corey Murphy.
yes, Corey Murphy. Like I was looking up the game, and he was the horse, like the horse of the team. I believe it said he had like 5 touchdowns or something like that from rushing. So yeah, I gotta go with Ezekiel Academy.
He's a grown
He's a grown man. Yep.
man.
I was literally saying that during the game. He looks like a grown man amongst boys. Look like Derrick Henry, just stiff arming every single player that got in his way against Tennessee Heat. So yeah, please believe, and that defense too. Murphy, oh my god, yeah. We'll just go with Ezekiel Academy.
So Success Unlimited has beat New Life Christian out of Millbrook, who are 1-3, and they beat Jacksonville Christian out of Jacksonville, Alabama, who's 0-5. Yeah, that's not going to be a challenge, Ezekiel.
All right, taking Ezekiel easy on that. All right, divisional matchup. The Ezel Harding Christian School Eagles host the South Haven Christian School Patriots. Ezel are coming off of a victory of sorts with the scrimmage, on a 36-0 win. South Haven taking a tough loss against their divisional rival, and this matchup very much could determine if somebody hosts a playoff game or not, and it is South Haven's last divisional matchup of the season. So in this competition with everything involved, Brendan, who's going to escape victorious from Nashville?
Now, see, James said they haven't had a competition until last game. So I'm going to go with South Haven, and I believe they're going to recuperate from that loss and figure out what they need to do to win on here on out.
Potentially give them a hosting rights to a playoff game. All right, James, and obviously it doesn't come down to coaches, as we mentioned, but between Coach McGee and Coach Sawyers and all the players in between, which one do you have?
First ever matchup on a varsity level.
Mm-hmm.
Ezel Harding, they've taken some bumps and bruises and losses, but they have momentum. I think South Haven does not. I'm riding with my boy Melvin Cousins. I'm riding with Isaiah Feisha. I'm riding with Kylon Robinson and the entire Ezel Harding Christian School Eagles football team. I've got them winning over South Haven Christian.
All right. Hope.
Oh,
yep.
And my beefy boy up front, James Hyman.
Let's see which one wins that split decision going into week 8. We continue along for week 7. Grace Baptist Academy, they have another home game where they host the Zion Christian Academy Eagles. Both teams coming in with a win. Zion on their first win in program history, and teams that have been in the TSSAA, but they never actually faced each other. They were not in the same division, so this should be an interesting matchup of sorts. Brendan, you got that look on your face as if I know who you're going to pick.
I
know who you're going to pick
really
on this.
Be interesting?
So hey, I got to give as much credit where credit is due. So, but
yeah.
I have a feeling because of how much humble pie you've had to eat, you're wanting to take a break from it, maybe get an insulin shot. Let's hear.
Listen. Grace Baptist knows I'm a believer now. They knew I was a believer right after they came in and beat Ezel Harding.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you said there was competition. I know you're trying to be nice. But let's be real. This is Grace Baptist. That's all I need to say.
All right, James, you agree with Brennan or disagree?
I love Jaron Kaiser. I love Max Brown. I love Zion. I think they've got a big monkey off of their back with the win over Lighthouse Christian, getting that first win. It ain't win number 2 ain't happening Friday night.
All right, you guys are on the same page for this competition. Lancaster Christian, after their tough loss, they host Franklin Christian. I think I know which one you guys are going to go with immediately. Lancaster, Franklin Christian, and what could be for the number 2, number 3 seed in the South. So, Brendan, who you got?
If Lancaster don't fix their issues, the Falcons are going to take it.
You think it's so with that?
I think it's because I haven't seen FCA play, but the way they've been putting up points and the way they be shutting out people, it's not going to change.
All right, first time we've ever had someone on the season pick Franklin Christian to win a game. So, James, who you got?
Hey,
Yeah, well, I ain't becoming number 2.
Come on, James. Be a believer. Come on. Let's be real.
No, sir. No, sir. I'm an unbeliever in the bird.
he believes in the knight in shining armor. So go split decision on that
Knight
one.
in the Shining Armor has a little kinks right now.
It's got some dents. It's got some battle
Yeah,
wear.
well, nothing that a bird's going to be able to take advantage of.
But it's a falcon, my boy. You never know. The eagle already messed them up.
All right, and we continue along. The Southern Prep Fighting Rangers have their first 11-man game of the season where they host Meadowview. Who you got in this one, Brennan?
I'll take Southern Prep.
All right, easy said there. James, who you got?
Listen, they have actually played another 11-man game this year, but
Yes, they did earlier in the year.
actually,
My
I think
mistake.
they played 2 11-man games. They won one and lost one.
Yeah, they had the Springwood Wildcats, and then, yep, that's right, Cornerstone. Yep, my apologies. 2 11-man games, so third one on the year. So who you got winning from this one?
Oh, well, they're going to go 1 and 2 in 11-man games. I've got Meadowview.
You got Meadowview. All right, split on that. And now the Tennessee Heat have their second 11-man game of the season. They host Monterey High School on Friday night. And we saw what happened in the first 11-man game of the season the Tennessee Heat had. Do they get their first 11-man victory of the year this coming Friday night, Brendan?
I think they're going to come off a high from the last game with the last couple of scores. So maybe they'll be able to put out this win. I'm not 100% on it, but I'm willing to give you guys that shot.
All right, he sticks with Tennessee Heat on that. James, who you got?
Yeah, well, hopefully this game doesn't end up 87-0.
Let's hope so. Yeah.
I mean, that would hurt. Monterey High School right now 5-1 on their season. They did beat Cannon County, who the Heat are supposed to play later on in the year, and they've been close games, low scoring games. They've been winning games. The one game they lost was 7-6. Okay, yeah, they're not going to struggle with the Heat. Monterey High School with the win.
All right, he's taking on that one. All right, Brendan, now is the time. The Kingdom.com Extreme Game of the Week is, let's see, I don't know if I can hear James drum rolling over there.
He's not drum rolling.
Hang on.
I'm getting a little bit of it's like, do.
That's a snare.
That is what we call a
Hold on,
snare
hold on.
drum. There we go.
You got a drum set over there?
It's
It's happening on the laptop.
doubleheader number 7 straight. We've had some long weekends, everybody.
Y'all
It's,
had long weekends.
yeah,
I had one break.
we have had some long weekends, and that continues as we have this coming weekend. It is Thursday night. The Lighthouse Christian School Lions host the Tennessee School for the Deaf. First time we have the Tennessee School for the Deaf Vikings on the Extreme Game of the Week since 2019, since they had their season canceled in 2020. And then Friday night, you guys, I'm taking off for an ESPN Plus broadcast. You will be in Franklin, where I live. So the one game of the year that I could have just driven 20 minutes from my home, I have to go over to Murfreesboro, as Franklin Classical will host the Sacred Heart of Jesus High School Knights. You guys are getting two teams actually that we've not covered at all this season, or at least not covered them for the Kingdom.com Extreme Game of the Week, as Sacred Heart travels from Jackson over to Franklin. So we start out on finishing up the predictions. The Lions, tough loss against Zion Christian. Still, Coach Bell looking for his first win as a head coach, and he's got it against the Tennessee School for the Deaf Vikings. So, Brendan, who you got in this one?
Look, I think Lighthouse pulls out this win.
Okay.
Even with all the injuries, this is the time for the young guys to step up and show what they've been working on and working up to here. So go ahead, Lighthouse. Get your first win in.
James, you going with the Vikings, or you think Coach Bell gets his first win Friday night?
Yeah, how about let's not go Lions. Vikings are going to come into Nashville.
Oh.
Just like if the Tennessee Volunteers were coming in to play Vanderbilt. And they will go back to the Eastern time zone
Well.
with the dub.
Well, James, you can't see Brendan's facial expressions right now, but yeah, He's shocked and then in
I'll see him in
laughter.
about 30 seconds on the YouTube stream.
Yeah, you'll see it in a few seconds. All right, in the final game to predict, Franklin Classical School hosts the Sacred Heart of Jesus High School Knights. And for Classical, even with it counting as a scrimmage, a tough loss. The players have the players like hopefully they haven't lost all hope for the season. Looking for a win against the Knights. And James, you're gonna hate me for saying this. A jousting match in Franklin between a collision of the Knights. So Sacred
You're
Heart
the one that has to
travels.
lay your head on the pillow tonight, knowing that you said that.
I could sleep just fine.
Can
Thank
you
very
say that
much.
in the play-by-play, James?
You what?
I like it though.
Yeah, I've said.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I've said jousting match for the
Come on,
introductions.
James.
Yeah, but at least Thursday night, Brendan and I will be on the call. James, you get to be play-by-play for the first time in a while, or at
I
least
have not called play-by-play since
October of last year.
it was the weekend you took off last year.
Yep, that was South Haven CCS in Springfield where you and
Yeah,
Zachary
it
called it
was.
together. It was. Or wait, no, Zachary didn't he do play-by-play that year? Last year? I thought it may have been you were on
No,
color.
I think I did play-by-play.
Okay, well, yeah, impressive. Quick story time. Zachary actually called that game with a concussion.
I was gonna do it. Well, that was story time with Spencer.
Oh, you were going to do the introduction thing. All right. Well, Classical. Hopefully, they have not lost any motivation to go through their season and get this win, especially at home. And for Sacred Heart, they're 2-2 right now, looking to go positive on the record. Coach Blankenship making the move to go independent. Well, Blankenship and the rest of the administration for Sacred Heart. So let's get the final prediction for Week 7, Brendan. You get which set of Knights do you have coming out of this victorious?
Franklin has too many injuries, so I'm gonna go with Sacred Heart.
All right. Do you think the injury bug is going to affect him too much there? All right, James. You think the injuries overwhelm Classical, or do you think that they come back and rally to get this victory at home?
No, I agree with Brendan. I think Sacred Heart comes into town, and they put up a good fight with South Haven. They put up a good fight with Tennessee Heat in the first little bit. Beat the two Arkansas teams. I don't think they'll struggle with Classical.
All right, so we leave it at that. So again, Thursday night I will be on site in Antioch. Friday night, I'll be calling game on ESPN Plus. Make sure you watch these guys because you can go back and watch the games on ESPN Plus for about 30 days afterwards. So make sure you're watching these guys on Friday.
We're
night.
more important anyway. You guys like us more than you like ESPN Plus.
We need the ego boost.
Okay,
Well.
ESPN Plus. I thought for a second
No,
you were
no.
saying like you guys better than me. I was like, I know I've thrown shade on the show before, but
No.
that's straight up okay. All right.
No, probably one person.
Did
hates
he
you,
have
Spencer.
to say it? But all right. Well, that gets through our predictions. Time for our normal shout-outs. We'll start with the man who is on a remote connection from about an hour away from here in a White House. So, James, your shout-outs for as we officially wrap up week number 6.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. A huge shout out to folks down in Ottawa.
Yep.
The folks from
Absolutely.
Grace. Stupid hospitable. They are literally on the level. Really, I want to give a shout out to Tennessee Heat as well.
Yeah.
To the two games we were at this weekend. Spencer mentioned that we've had 6 doubleheader weekends in a row. So 12 games. It's been a very long season. And when we get to go to places where there's a red carpet rolled out, we're welcomed, we're helped, we're appreciated. That makes a world of difference with the schedule that we've been keeping. And so I want to give a huge shout out to both of those organizations for just being class acts and really making this job enjoyable. It's tiring, but enjoyable, especially when you get to deal with people like that.
Is it really tiring though, James?
It is.
I'm exhausted.
I guess I just have that second wind high.
Well, here's what I will say. Tiring as in once we get done with the game and packing everything up and start the road trip back, that's where it gets tiring and you're just kind of deflated from everything that's been going on. But I get what you're saying with the second wind and the energy. Like, anytime I'm in the booth, I'm ready to go. Even with my vocal cords being sore the last several days, I express the same sentiment as you of being energized and everything. But yeah, it's a tiring grind. And full disclosure, James and I talked about this. It's what we asked for. We asked for more games on Saturdays and Thursdays. We've gotten them. It's now 7 weeks straight of doing doubleheaders, and then next weekend. Right now, there's no game on Saturday or Thursday. So we'll at least get a little bit of a break with that. But it's been tiring.
I don't think there's one the next weekend either.
That following weekend, no. There is a. I think there. Yeah, there isn't. There isn't because there was going to be a Thursday game for the Tennessee School for the Deaf, but they cancel all of their out-of-state opponents at home or on the road. So they. But we'll at least get a little bit of a rest for the next 2 weeks with only one game on Friday night, and then we go from there. But all right. So just to reflect that sentiment, yep, Tennessee Heat, great environment on Friday with homecoming, even with the rain and the factors involved and everything. The crowd was still energized and cheering on their players whenever they got scores or big plays and everything. On Saturday, same thing. Even with the lights going out, everyone was still energized and they were still enjoying the competition on the field and all that. It was, anytime we go down to Ottawa, it's been a very pleasant experience. Anytime we've gone to Charlie Daniels Park in Mount Juliet, it's been a very pleasant experience. So I reflect that same sentiment given by James Shannon. Your shout-out says we conclude week 6.
I have one more.
Oh, all right. What you got?
I would like to give a shout out to Spencer
for
channeling his inner Vin Diesel yesterday on the way to Chattanooga.
Yeah. No.
As much as I could because of the monsoon raining into the windshield, and I could only go 50 to 55 miles an hour. But yeah, it.
Well, that's why he called you Vin
Diesel.
And
I literally sat in the passenger seat just on my phone, completely relaxed, knowing that our chauffeur would get the job done. So huge shout out.
Got there 30 minutes beforehand. We got it all set up, and for those of you who go back and look at the game, we literally started probably 10 seconds before the first kickoff. Before the player Arrington's foot touched, not Arrington. Grace Baptist kicker touched the ball, and it was returned for an onside kick. Literally 10 seconds before that, right on cue, we went live. So that.
Hey, and a shout out to all of us, Audrey, Brennan, all of us for just hustling.
Oh yeah.
Getting set up. Our normal setup is 45 to 50 minutes. We got set up in.
He's shouting you out.
29.
Yeah, I was about to say Audrey doesn't have a headset on. He's shouting out everybody for the 30-minute setup and such. She's on the other side of the camera there, so special shout out to Audrey for not just tagging along with us, contributing in a very monumental way.
Being a real boss lady.
Oh yeah. 3 weeks into the season, we're already not barking orders, but the direct orders. Yeah, now she is. But 4 weeks in, she started getting more comfortable, and now it's we're at the mercy of Audrey making us look good on air. So thank you, Audrey, and so. Brendan, assuming James doesn't say he has another one, you got any
Do you have another one, James? Before I go?
I'm good.
There we go.
I want to give out a shout out to, of course, I have a few.
Sure, yeah.
So, of course, Tennessee Heat, beautiful homecoming, very welcoming. We appreciate y'all for helping us. Grace Baptist, especially out Ottawa with the rain, and you guys just wanted to wait for us to get there. Thank you guys so much. And it was a great night, even with the lights went out. They still made it fun to me. And then, of course, shout out to friends and family that helped me celebrate last week for my 30th birthday. Probably one of the funnest birthdays I've ever had in my life. And to everybody who called me up, especially you, Spencer, Audrey, thank you guys for wishing me happy birthday. Spencer, especially you. You done it like 5 times.
Oh, well, because I forgot it so much. Like, James gave me crap about it for saying it every single time on the show. It's like I kept forgetting because you can ask Audrey or Matthew or James. I kept talking as if you were going to be there the weekend of September 10th. And they were like, yeah, Brendan's not going to be there. Don't forget and such. And that's why I mentioned it so many times. And James was giving me crap for it on the Sunday show. He's like, you're going to keep mentioning his birthday? I'm like, yeah, because I kept forgetting.
Well, okay. So, James, shout out to you too, because I was going to give you crap for the show that you did last week, but I forgive you for it. So thank you, James, as well.
I appreciate that.
Oh yeah. So, All right. Well, I don't really have any. I guess I don't have any particular shout outs this week that I've already mentioned. I just reflect the sentiment of shout out to Grace Baptist for being hospitable hosts. Shout out to
And the Heat.
Tennessee. I was about to say that.
Okay.
Tennessee
Let
Heat
'em
as
get
well. We're going to mention at the end of the season the score reporters, and James handles it more on that side. But shout out to all the people who text scores, who actually give us detailed updates and send what. Even some of the coaches. Shout out to the coaches who, even during their games, they text updates, scoring updates to say, hey, this is what player had that and everything. So that way we can highlight the players that deserve them, but also
which
make
is
sure that we're
amazing
kept
because
updated.
they
Yep.
don't really have much time to probably do that.
Yeah, they have however much they're having to focus on their craft and everything. It's incredible for them to participate in that, but it's we're pushing along. Week 6 is in the books. We're we're past the halfway point of the regular season. Yeah,
Come on, James, give yourself a round of applause.
Yeah, give yourself, James, a round of applause for getting through halfway through the season, and we are pushing along, getting through the next half of 2021 8-man football season, and that is gonna do it for Extreme Talk, presented by GracePointe Healthcare, fueled by Fairlife Core Power Protein, financially supported in part by First Horizon, and sponsored by Crumble Cookies and Iceberg Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. For James Shannon from afar, for Audrey Green on the other side of the camera, for Jerry Jr. and Matthew Cruz from afar, as well as Brendan Daniels sitting next to me, Spencer Thompson saying so long. We'll see you Thursday for Lighthouse and the Tennessee School for the Deaf, and Friday for Franklin Classical and Sacred Heart.